Hi, team. This is going to be a short as possible launch of some framing for this important end of try that we're about to embark on and end of year. So first of all, this was sent out initially on Monday, but I just want to go back and just zoom out a little bit to give a little bit of a broader framing. So how did we get here, and how do we end up with an evolved, very different plan for end of try, end of year? It really did start in an MTSS discussion that we were having with some high school teachers, and their calling out of data that was concerning, and thinking of like how where some gaps are and how we're intervening, and as we moved beyond just like solving for access for every student and into a space of how do we then support individual students who are struggling, and even knowing what struggling looks like in each school. So it started there. And then it moved into, well, we are at the end of try, and we have some things that we've typically done, and how can we merge the two into one thing that is actually purposeful and feels like we're actually serving students and doing our best. So and then soon thereafter, we discovered that we had this 5:26 to 6:02 time, and it was significantly different and open for us to use in a way that is most purposeful. We really did think about how we have and have not really where we have and haven't met the network expectations for student and parent engagement, and the best practices that we've seen across the network. We also know that we've been reminded many times just how critical student enrollment will be next year with the funding climate, and having a really closing, anchoring moment for students as they leave the year just felt like the right thing to do to live our values fully with every student. And then finally, we did have a lot of input into what this final plan is from last Thursday through yesterday to really revise this and get it to where it needs to be. So, summarizing quickly, nothing about this try has been normal, and it really has forced us to adapt. And adapting is the right thing to do when everything is so different. The typical end of try stuff just doesn't make sense with the experience students and staff have had in the last 2 months. And then we have this closeout period after the grading deadline for remediation and enrichment that really provided an opportunity to do things differently. So things that we will not be doing this end of try, based on everything I just said, is pre-written comments for each advisee is not an expectation. It's not a workflow, not a deadline. We are not doing it. Effort scores and IC, the same thing. If you review the rubric, it wouldn't feel like a right fit for the eSchool experience. And then also giving every student 6 grades for core values from every teacher is a wonderful thing to do in another environment, but not in this environment. So what we will do, though, is we will, to that last point, we will still gather, similar to the way that core values work. Every content teacher will give their student a score, and we'll talk about that in a second, but on a different criteria. Secondly, we will have students complete a thorough reflection, which is really the basis for a one-to-one conference that will come in the last 2 days of school. We will have a grading day on 5/29 where half the day, if teachers haven't finished their grade books, we'll be finalizing your grade book up until noon. And then in the afternoon, you have the opportunity to pivot and prep for your conferences the following day. By that afternoon is when we'll have up-to-date information on most things like summer school and other decisions. One-to-one, so then the conferences will occur, and they will occur on the final 2 days of school. And I know that is not something we've ever done, but it's something that we know is the right thing to do this trimester. And there will be a one-to-one contact point again with families that could happen either in the conference if families do end up showing up to the conference, either by invitation or they crash it, or and if not, it's just a summarizing email that just hits the high points of the conference. A little bit more about why what the goals are and why we'll have a conference. It just really has been a traumatic and isolating spring for everybody, and we believe it is critical to have a personal connection to end this year. That is like the most DSST and the most Byers way we could end the year with our students. And we know that our students are in various levels of engaging now, or sort of getting spring fever and all of those things. But coming back to relationships and connection is something that we can always do, especially in a one-to-one setting. And I think it really does set apart like who we are as Byers and DSST in the whole climate of DPS. I really am proud of how how we engage that way and value relationships, and it's so important that we do that. The three major goals are that students and families feel the deep care we have for them, that students enhance their self-awareness of themselves through the reflection process and the conferencing as eSchool learners, and that advisors then can really pass on the best information to the parent and the advisor of the student through that closing email and also advisor checkout, which will happen on June 3rd. I'm going to let your dean sort of explain the rest of this stuff, but that was just some initial framing. Thank you guys, and I'm really excited to end this year strong with everybody.